You're listening to America's Morning News.
And good morning. This is America's Morning News, where the nation's news breaks on this Tuesday, September 9th. I'm Matt Ray. Here's what we're following this hour. A new witness in the Michael Brown shooting says the teenager had his hands up when he was gunned down and disputes that he charged Officer Wilson. So what does this do to Officer Wilson's story? Let's check in with Brian Bouffard. He's our legal expert. The website is bouffardlaw.com. Good morning, Brian. Thanks for joining us here on America's Morning News.
Good morning, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Let's talk about this latest report, the witness into the shooting of Michael Brown coming forward. He said the unarmed black teenager had his hands up and was running away from Officer Wilson as he was gunned down in Missouri. Why is this witness coming forward? Why is this important in the case?
Well, anytime you can get unbiased witnesses giving testimony, that's extremely powerful evidence. Now, obviously, I don't know if these people are unbiased, but they certainly appear to be, and certainly that's the way they're being portrayed in the media. So, unfortunately, this case has kind of polarized us, and we've seen in our national discourse, not only on this issue but on many other issues, that people oftentimes just sort of choose the facts that they like and ignore the ones that they don't. So, when we can get somebody, again, unbiased, it helps kind of level the playing field and helps the truth come out.
And this witness spoke to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. What do you mean when you say unbiased?
Well, I guess by that, in this case, I just mean somebody who isn't necessarily aligned with one side or the other. You've got a lot of the quote-unquote conservative folks taking up the banner of the police no matter what. You've got some of the liberal folks taking up the banner of the oppressed minority no matter what. And the truth is often somewhere in between. So when we can have things like video or audio, that's fantastic. But in the absence of that, people who are complete bystanders with no dog in the fight can oftentimes be very, very powerful witnesses.
And when you say unbiased, this was a construction worker who just happened to be nearby during the August 9th shooting.
That appears to be the case. And so, somebody who is not allied with law enforcement, I mean, it's sad to say this, but the fact that the construction worker is white, I think it tends to lend more credibility when he's standing up there saying, "Hey, Michael Brown, didn't appear to be doing anything aggressive."
You had mentioned video and audio, and there is purported audio. That app that somebody nearby was using recorded what appear to be shots. The maker of the app confirmed the timestamp that it was indeed. It does indeed match the shooting. Have you heard that audio? Do you know of the app, and what does that do to the case?
I haven't heard that audio. I'm aware of it, though. But assuming that everybody's timestamps are set correctly, which is oftentimes not the case with everybody has different phones. But if they're all synced up and they all have the exact same timestamp, and you can show video, maybe without audio, of certain things happening at a particular time, if you can match those up, then you can get a clearer picture of what happened.
What is the grand jury looking at right now as the DA presents the case and whether or not this officer should be held over for trial for these charges?
Unfortunately, they're looking at exactly what the prosecutor decides to show them. The grand juries can subpoena evidence. They can subpoena witnesses. I mean, they can go out and actively obtain evidence, and they have the authority to do that. Oftentimes they don't. The vast majority of the time they just digest what the prosecutor gives them and listen to what the prosecutor tells them. So bottom line is the grand jury is likely going to do whatever the prosecutor tells them that they think is appropriate.
You had mentioned the media in the case. How does that cloud the water, if any, as it moves forward through the grand jury process?
Well, these grand jurors are not sequestered. They're not kept in a hotel room and prohibited from watching the news. So you have to assume that they're quite well aware of the events on the ground in Ferguson, just like the rest of us are, through the media. So it's one of those ways in which the media can really shape what's happening, because depending on how these grand jurors feel about the stories that they hear on TV, that could and likely will affect their decision making.
What about the possible impact or residual that the federal investigations might have? You have Attorney General Eric Holder launching a wide-ranging civil rights investigation into the police practices. That's just the latest. That's a side investigation that it's conducting there. The FBI is also looking into this, as well as the Attorney General into other areas. How does that impact the grand jury case? And what is the AG looking for as he goes back and takes a look at the record of the Ferguson, Missouri Police Department?
Well, it's not going to affect the grand jury in any kind of direct way. In other words, there's no impact that the fact that there's a federal investigation has to have on whether or not they think a crime was committed. I do think that it's one of those, kind of exciting things that the media reports that they're going to be aware of, and depending on how they, for example, how they might feel about this administration, and then they've got the Attorney General looking into this, and the racial issues that they may perceive to be there, that may somehow affect their decision making. I can't necessarily predict how, but as far as what the federal investigation is looking for generally, I mean, they're investigating whether Michael Brown's civil rights were violated when he was gunned down. And so essentially what that means is they're going to be trying to determine whether or not this was on some level a hate crime by the officer. He gunned this man down because of the color of his skin.
Does that open up we can sit here and pontificate, and I know you probably don't want to since you're a legal expert, but I would imagine if they find something, that opens a Pandora's box into all kinds of other investigations that have happened and taken place with Ferguson.
It certainly should. And we've seen issues like that here in Texas, where I live and practice. When something bad happens in a forensics lab or in a police department generally, I mean, yeah, it can highlight the fact that there are systemic problems with the way they do business. And I would love to be able to say, we live in this post-racial society where there is no more racism and stuff like that doesn't matter, but that's not the reality. And when you couple that with the fact that we all know that it's human nature that power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and we're giving police departments a whole lot of power and a whole lot of authority, and we have to trust that they're going to use that appropriately, and most of the times they do, and unfortunately sometimes they don't.
Brian, we're up against the clock. We appreciate your time as always. Brian Bouffard, legal expert. The website is bouffardlaw.com. Our producer is Joe Harper. America's Morning News, journalism without agenda.